to growth. Success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, Real Truth listeners. Today I have Emmanuel, author, entrepreneur, corporate advisor. I think the thing that got kind of me interested was, I think your book, when I got from the email from your rep about basically the financial sector, the banking. And so that kind of aspect got me intrigued. I didn't know where we would take this, but I was just kind of curious of getting you on the platform. So thank you, Emmanuel, for being here today.
Thanks, Vinny, for having me on. I'm two things. I guess I'm the owner of a business that serves the banking industry. We do a lot of research reports and we provide consulting, help the banks improve their services. We rank them and all that. And I do that in several continents, in all of Asia, all of Middle East, all of Africa. And then we also run programs in the US. But after having done that for many years, I wrote a book 1.5 years ago, which is on the future of the financial services industry, or the future of finance in general. So where's the economy taking us, and what's finance is going to look like. I try to keep it as layman as possible, so that ordinary people will understand, where banking is going, where finance is going, and what that means to them personally. Like, how should they think about their assets and stuff like that. So, we can take this conversation either way, entrepreneur or the future of finance.
Well, we'll jump into, I guess, to you. And I know this is going to be, the question is going to be an easy answer for me to say, but probably a hard answer for you to respond to. How does banking change from country to country? And then the next question is going to be is, how do you think it's going to change in the future? Is it going to be more unified? Because I think I saw something about crypto and that kind of stuff. So how does it kind of change from country to country? And then do you think there's going to be kind of similarities throughout going into the future?
Vinny, I travel to I've done about 124 countries now, and then I get to see the banking industry in countries which are just starting off. In fact, I was just last week in a country called Timor-Leste. That's like one of the youngest countries in the world. It's out behind, Indonesia, right next to Australia. It became independent in 2001. And the advice I was giving them was to even start, developing their mortgage business. Because if you look at the banking balance sheet in almost any other developed country, the US, anywhere in the world, an average commercial bank balance sheet, it carries a lot of the mortgages in its local market. So for you and me, a bank is where you go in, you borrow in order to leverage, and then you create an asset which over a period of time becomes wealth to you. So if you take a mortgage, you wait 6 years, 8 years, 20 years, and then you start seeing the value of the asset being realized. But there are countries where even this hasn't started yet. They help their small businesses get their trade finance right, or transactions or payments or remittance or something like that. So I've seen the whole gamut, the whole spectrum of different types of financial services. But where the industry is going as a whole is that eventually we will not need banks. And the technology now exists for you and I to transact with each other without a bank as an intermediary. And that's what essentially, crypto, blockchain, and digital money and all of that, that's where it's taking us. And after the promise of all of these, I call it, the future without an intermediary. It creates a lot of risks in the process. So for the more developed countries, it's really about how the regulators come in and create a safe environment so that you and I can, deal with each other, whether it's a payment or whether it's exchanging assets. And these days, assets are increasingly digital. So, you can store them on new, startup type platforms, but you don't know how safe they are and how secure they are. So many regulators around the world are trying to license these players in the same way that they license traditional banks. But that in turn creates other problems, like who will they license? What do they expect them to do? Can they pass on the profits to their customers? Stuff like that. So there's a lot going on around the world. But to keep it really simple, and that's what the title of my book is, which is The Personalization of Finance is Here. What I'm saying is that increasingly, you and I, as ordinary people, are gaining greater access and greater control of our assets, of our transactions in finance.
Greater access and I guess understanding of kind of where things are coming from and kind of why they're charging you certain things. You think that's kind of coming about too?
Greater control, I guess. It's a better word than greater access. Access, anyone has access. So
Yeah.
if you went on Google and looked up crypto, you'll find all kinds of sites, both in the U.S. as well as around the world, where you can buy digital assets, you can buy cryptocurrencies, you can tokenize an asset that you already have, stuff like that. So sounds a little technical, but very simply, money used to be something that's physical in your hand. And then it became digital, like when you send me money electronically, that's your money sitting as an account in your bank, and then you send it off to me. But today with crypto, you're not just sending information on the money, you're actually sending a token, which is money in itself, which I then can take and go out and do things with it. So that's where we are heading in general. Some people may not already see it, but some people live it because they may live in countries where the banking system isn't secure, or it's in a lot of trouble. So people need to look for alternatives, and these alternatives already exist in crypto and in digital finance.
Well, so is there going to be, I mean, because we're going so more, I guess, digital, right? It makes it easier for more scams and scammers. And I'm assuming as technology goes, right, with AI and all that kind of stuff, right? We're going to start seeing more of that. So do you think there's ever going to be kind of a yo-yo effect where we'll have the crypto, but we're going to have like kiosks that are like almost like banks that are going to, you can actually see someone and do the transaction there? Or what do you foresee that to be?
So that's what the regulators, the Fed, the CFTC, the SEC in the US are all trying to do, which is they want to know who's providing the platforms. They want to know who's providing the transactions, and they want to have a reason to license them. But the technology itself started without the need for licensing, and that's why in the early days of crypto, if you know the story of Mt. Gox, for example, just somebody out in Japan sets up a platform in order to take your crypto and store it for you securely, but someone else goes in there and steals from him, and he has no recourse, and you have no recourse because it's stolen, it's gone, and he wasn't regulated in the first place. So in a number of countries, the regulators have come in and said, no, you cannot be in this business of intermediating all this new digital money unless you are licensed. But the problem in the US is that the SEC is like making it a technical problem, which is are the tokens that you transact, are they a security or are they just a token for payments? So that's the battle that's underway in the U.S. But while all this is going on, there are new players, and you have stories like Sam Bankman-Fried, going out to the Bahamas and setting up a huge platform there and being very successful. But then using the profits that he is gaining to go out there and borrow more money from a bank that he bought and leveraged it further and all of that stuff. So these are some of the things that the regulators need to regulate and bring down, to be able to control, so that they know who it is that is providing these services, whether they're set up to provide a safe and secure environment, and whether they're liquid enough that if there is a run, that they can pay their bills and they can give the money back to the people who leave it with them. So there's a lot happening on that front, and what we're doing now is we're tracking all of these developments. But as they happen, the traditional banks are asking themselves, should we also be in this business? And if you're going to be in this business, how should we play it? Should we play it in the same way that the new players are doing, which is, set up a platform and then, make it secure and all of that? Or do we digitize the business we already have? So there are moves today to firstly digitize your basic bank account. The money that you have in your bank, to digitize it. So when you use a Venmo or or a PayPal, it's actually digital money that you're using. Information on money being transacted. But you take it one more level. They want to tokenize the digitized money. In other words, in a digital form, that money is almost like physical money. It's like, except that you can't touch it, but you can give it to somebody else, and it's non-fungible, meaning that it's that money exactly, like a dollar note, that dollar note exactly, but this is digital. So the industry is moving that way, and for all that's happening around the world, the global regulators, the Fed, all of the regulators in the different countries, they are trending towards eventually allowing the banks in their respective countries to issue their own versions of cryptocurrencies, which may well be something called stable coins, which are essentially digital tokenized versions of the US dollar. And the drivers or the triggers that will create this into a reality have to do with all the macro issues that are swirling around in the world. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, but you just need to keep a lookout for the time when banks will ask you to deal with the simple deposits that you have in their accounts in a different way than the way in which we're doing it today.
So as a business owner, entrepreneur, author, right, for yourself, having this education and having this understanding of where things are going, how do you, I don't know the best way to use profit or build a business or kind of like guide yourself to take advantage of kind of your knowledge? Is it, and I'm assuming you made some funds off the books, but is there other businesses or things that you've kind of looked into to kind of grow your brand?
In creating wealth, and if as to the extent that your audience live in traditional countries, whether it's the US or Singapore, which is where I come from, where you have a safe and secure banking system, you got to do the whole range. You got to buy a house, and property is your first line of wealth creation. That hasn't changed at all. And then you need to buy funds. In other words, trust the professionals to be able to manage your liquid assets and your long-term commitments. And then you got to dabble a little bit with all the new technologies that are coming on stream. So that's exactly what I do. So I think about 70% of my total net worth is in mortgages, and then 25% will be in funds of different kinds, hedge funds, and traditional long-term funds, insurance, and all of that. And then another about 10 to 15% is in new asset classes like crypto. I'm a big believer, not believer, but I think that Bitcoin is taking us somewhere that we all need to be in it, we at least need to have 5% of our disposable income in new technologies that are that are evolving. And then, of course, securities, shares. But unfortunately, I haven't been very good with my my trading share portfolio. There was a time before COVID I was doing really well, and then when the market turned, I lost a lot of money on the security side. But the funds are doing well, the mortgages are doing well, and today I must say that my crypto is doing well too. So you need to have that learning attitude, which is okay. I may not understand anything about crypto, but let me at least buy the first. Well, today, one Bitcoin is like $70,000, but a part of it at least, or at least one or two, and then see where it takes you, because there's a lot more to then in the digital space. It's more. There's a lot more to it than just buying a token or an asset. It's what you can do with it that we all have to get down to learning at some point.
So the understanding, I mean, where we're going and traveling for these, I mean, meeting these other banks and around the world, it doesn't sound like there's like a strong financial component that you're receiving out. So what's driving you to educate the masses on kind of what you're seeing?
Well, that's I've pivoted a bit away. The business that I build, I make money from the banks themselves. Banks in many different countries. We provide a whole range of services like research. We list, we rank them. We go into their banks and teach them in terms of where they stand relative to their competition. All of that stuff. We run seminars, we run conferences, all of that stuff. So that's the business that I run, and I have about 70 employees. In Singapore, in Dubai, in Beijing, in New York. And they all spread around. Collecting information and putting together these reports, and then I use a number of ex-bankers and independent consultants to deliver some of these research and consulting assignments that we get from the banks. So that's the business that I run.
Yeah.
It's looked after me very well since 1996 is when it started. So that's my bread and butter, and that industry has been changing dramatically in itself. In the old days, it used to be just publishing, and you sell a report. You write a report and you sell it. But today, the information business, the end user of your information, and the end user of my information has also changed. It's not just the traditional banks, but also the new, they call them challengers. The fintech companies, the new technology players. Who are very curious about, how can I play in the banking industry or finance industry? How can I play in payments, in remittances, and so on? And so they come to us and say, okay, give us a profile of this market. Is that viable for us, and all of that? So the profile of our clients have changed as well. And there I learned things like how do you keep up with the changes taking place in the information era? Some of the stuff that I just explained, like digital assets, tokenized deposits, even the bankers don't understand, So, or they're like, okay, let's see how this is going to work. How do we, put our toes into this new realm and start playing with it, and and learning how we can monetize this business. So, there's so much that's happening that's new that even the people in the industry haven't figured it out yet.
Well, I mean, let's rewind a little bit. Did you have a background in like banking before you got into being a consultant, or where did you kind of come from to get to where you are now?
It's funny because I actually trained as a lawyer, and for 10 years I worked in a corporate space. I was in consulting, and I worked in a consulting firm where we did advisory work. We went into companies and finance companies to do consulting work. When I say consulting, what I mean is we actually have to learn about different industries in a hurry. And then, our value is that because we're outsiders, we can see things a little bit more dispassionately than the people in the industry. So that's consulting in a nutshell. And then 10 years after graduating, I felt that I could start a business of my own. And then research and publishing presented itself as an easy way to go in there and have conversations with the banks in the countries that I was familiar with. And so that's how I built this. The funny thing is that for providing consulting services and for providing research services, the people who are in the industry, and this is not just in banking, almost any industry, the people who are in the industry are usually not the ones who know how to provide these intelligent services. You need to be dispassionate. You need to step out of the industry. You need to look into the industry as somebody who's looking at it critically. So almost none of my research staff have had banking experience, but banking is what we cover. And in the time that they're with us, the first 2 years is like learning about what does the balance sheet tell you? What do we mean by risk management in a bank? What does the technology infrastructure look like? All of that stuff. And a lot of our learning takes place from the interviews that we do with the bankers themselves. And then you say, how much experience have you had in banking? Most of the people in this business don't start with actual experience, but we do depend on people with experience to do some of the consulting for us. So if it's about setting up a technology division or a response to new regulation in Basel III, they call them, which is a risk management paradigm. It helps to have somebody who's worked in the bank. So we use them as independent consultants to augment the information that we are putting together.
So correct me if I'm wrong, and this is even bringing it down. I know you even said that you're trying to talk in layman terms. Maybe this is even bringing it farther down, right? So most of the consulting work you do for these banks, right, they really don't want to hear that their bread and butter could be kind of lost with crypto and that kind of stuff. So how are you providing this information for them to actually take it in and understand there could be drastic changes to their business in the future?
Well, baseline, we write reports, and then they read the reports, and then they think about it, and they have internal discussions and stuff like that. But there are also a few leading banks around the world which are already in this game. They figured it out. They don't need us. The ones who pay our bills are the ones who can't figure it out or too timid and want a third-party, validation before they go into that business. And we also create forums like roundtables where we bring the people who are doing some things, the bankers who are doing things in this area, together with the ones who are learning, and then they sort of exchange information and all that. So we provide the platform where the industry learns. But we also work with the crypto players themselves. So companies like Circle, Coinbase doesn't work with us, but I'm sure they have their own version of the consultants that they use. And what they want to do is to understand traditional banking better so that they can take it over, that they can extend the new stuff that they're doing into traditional banking. So, so it's the demand is coming from different sides. One is from the incumbents, and the other from the challengers who are looking at how to expand their business into the incumbent space. The whole space is transforming even as we speak. There was a time when bankers hated crypto, and they did not even allow crypto companies to have bank accounts. But then today, they're talking language such as off-ramp and on-ramp, which is how do you get fiat money, which is what you and I use today, onto digital platforms, and then to turn them into crypto. That's on-ramping, right? Off-ramping is when you make money on the crypto front, how do you then change that into traditional cash and then go out and spend it? So So the bankers are learning this language right now, and and trying to figure out where they should play, and where the money is for them.
Do you recall when you, I guess, first started advising these banks to um, transition into more of the crypto space? Were you hesitant on doing it, or what kind of information like blew your socks off to go, okay, I got to basically to have my team and myself start telling banks, hey, they got to start looking into this?
Oh, the banks hated us for it. In fact, they wouldn't even hear it. So it was more the startup companies, the fintech companies that came to us and said, "Hey, how do we get this conversation going with the banks?" And so
Uh,
we created forums and stuff like that. So and bankers really they take their cue from the regulators. So the regulators don't allow them to do something. They're not going there. They're not going to touch it because they're scared stiff about losing their license. And this is true in any country, and it's definitely true in the U.S. And then when new application for licenses come on board, like in the U.S. right now, there's a bank called Canadian Bank, which is I think it's in Wyoming. It's got a Wyoming state banking charter, but it doesn't have a national charter, and it's not exactly regulated by the Federal Reserve Bank, at the national level. And then they went into crypto. They provide a whole range of crypto services, and they have to fight the system to be allowed to do what traditional banks do. And so that this whole ecosystem is in a state of motion. The incumbents are only just waking up to understand what this whole game plan is, and then the new challenges coming in are trying to be taken as seriously as the incumbents. And by creating the forums, we enable them to talk to each other, and then we document some of the discussions that they have, so that the regulators can take that off and go and modify the regulation, for example. So there's a lot of work underway. It's a moving target, and the money is not very clear either, because when crypto is doing well, there's lots of money for the new players coming on stream. When crypto is doing badly, the banks are afraid that a lot of these technology companies are going to go under. And they do go under, by the way. So it's really a very, very dynamic state of affairs.
did you always realize that forums and having someone in their own sector kind of tell them this is what you need to do instead of you telling what to do was the best way of educating like bankers, or was that something that was learned over time?
Well, because I had, a legal background and then a consulting background, I've always been in the business of telling businesses what to do.
Yeah.
And the deliverable used to be PowerPoint slides, right? And then you put it together in a deck, and then you present it, and then they're happy because they're paying somebody who is outside their institution to help them think through the whole process. And then especially if you understand how the bank itself is run, you can advise them on what they need to do to get to where they need to get to. And of course, the final decision is always their own. So I've always been in the advice business, but then the publishing model gives me the freedom to do a few other things. For example, I can actually do a ranking of the banks that are in crypto, or the banks that are in digital assets, the banks that are digital friendly, and which have created the best digital interfaces, things like that. So I keep them honest. I'm like the high priest of the industry. I keep them honest by publishing these rankings, and then they get upset. The ones that do well say, oh, yes, you understand our business, and the ones who don't do very well say, oh, you don't understand why we're not up there and all that stuff. So there's a little bit of tension in the industry, and that tension is good. That's actually where we make our money from.
The tension that they want to prove you wrong.
Yeah, so not everyone will end up being your paying client. but one bank might be a paying client in one area and then not in another. And a bank which was not ranked very well might never be your client after that. But the ones that were ranked well will come back and say, oh, tell us more and stuff like that. So, what banks want to know is not just how they are doing relative to their peers, because there's a lot of information already in any country that banks can get, even from the regulator. They can say, give us an idea of what the market share for deposits are in our business, in our country. And every regulator has that number. Because they talk to all the banks, they put the number together and say, yeah, okay, you've got 35%, and that's 2% up from last year. So you obviously are doing something right. We publish that information too, but we take it from the regulators themselves. But then there are new areas, and there are areas where they don't have that information, and then we have to go out and collect that information and then show it to them. And they also want to be compared to their peers outside of their jurisdiction. So a small bank, a community bank in the US will say to us, well, we don't have any bank clients in the US, except that we have US bank clients who do global payments and global transaction banking, out in Asia, in the rest of the world, who are our clients. And they, want to know whether they are the biggest US dollar clearing bank in Asia, for example, and we publish that information. So there are some players who want to be compared to best in class, which may be another bank in another country. And there are not too many players who do that. And that's why players like us are very important, because we compare players across different settings, different jurisdictions, so that they can learn from each other. So a small bank, a community bank in the US, shouldn't be comparing itself with Wells Fargo, for example, or a JP Morgan. They should be comparing themselves with a community bank in another country. So we go out and look for who it is that they should be comparing with. And today, there's a lot of new stuff that is happening. Like globally, there are new digital-only banks with much more millions of customers than traditional banks ever had. In Brazil, for example, there's a bank called Nubank, which practically brought the country from almost non-existent banking infrastructure to, that anyone who wants to be banked in Brazil today can go up to Nubank and go in there, and everything is done digitally, and open a bank account. And we like that bank. In China, there's something called WeBank, stuff like that. So and these are these started as non-banks, but they now have enough deposits that they look like a good bank. And then therefore the regulators come in and say, you know what, we've got to regulate you because you're taking so much of ordinary people's money.
Well, thank you, Emmanuel, for being here today. If someone's looking to hear about another book you're going to come out with, or other information to come in the future, what's the best way of them kind of staying in touch with stuff you're going to put out there?
Yeah, so the best way is emmanueldaniel.com. And from there, you can navigate to my book. I put out a blog. I write about the stuff that I just talked about. And I'm working towards a book where the personalization of finance is actually leading to the personalization of society. The greater control you have over your money, your digital access to your information, is changing the way you and I and everybody, and it doesn't matter whether you live in the US or China, you're becoming more powerful and in control of your assets. And that's putting a demand on governments, on how they govern, how they regulate, countries and economies. So my next book is in that direction.
And on your website, is there, or the stuff you talk about where you have the rankings for the different banks, can they find that on your website? Is that like open to everyone? Is that only for the
so from my website, you learn, you lead to the businesses that I run. So it will lead to Tab Global, to the Asian Banker, to Wealth and Society. Those are the businesses that I run. My website are my personal opinions. So I need to keep that separate because in my personal opinion, I can say whatever I want. But in the website for our businesses, like the Asian Banker, for example, we put out stuff about the banks themselves, which to an ordinary person may look very boring, but the banks love the stuff. So I keep that separate.
Fair enough. Well, thank you, Emmanuel, for being here. Hopefully everyone listening got some great information. We do have a sponsor, Melody Cloud. So if you're looking for some relaxed music, go in the show notes for Melody Cloud. And if you need any Southern California real estate help, go in the show notes for the Enriquez Group. Thank you, Emmanuel, for being here. I know there's a lot of information that on this podcast. I know it wasn't a traditional one where we kind of jumped into Emmanuel's story, and a lot of things are changing right now. I thought this would be a good one just to kind of dive into, especially if you own a business right there. Understand who you're banking with, understand why you're banking with them, and maybe you're a bank and you might want to reach out to Emmanuel. Thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and go find Emmanuel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.